Hello everyone, welcome to the 225 jury charge in literary. We're going to start off with some general jury charge and I'm going to read this at 200. Ready? Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, the written instructions now being given will be made available in the jury room during your deliberations. They must not be defaced in any way. Some of the instructions may be changed with writing or handwriting. Blanks in the printed instructions may be filled in by actual handwriting. Also, portions of the instructions may have been deleted by lining out. You are not to be concerned with the reasons for any changes that have been made. Also, you must disregard any deleted part of an instruction and not speculate either what it was or what is the reason for its deletion. Every part of an instruction is of equal importance. You are to be governed only by the instruction in its final form. If in these instructions any rule, direction, or idea be stated in varying ways, no emphasis thereon is intended by me, and none must be inferred by you. For that reason, you are not to single out any certain sentence or any individual point or instruction and ignore the others. But you are to consider all of the instructions as a whole and are to regard each in the light of all the others. The court has endeavored to give you instructions embodying all rules of law that may become necessary in guiding you to a just and lawful verdict. The applicability of some instructions will depend upon the conclusions you reach as to the facts. As to any such instruction, the fact that it has been given must not be taken as indicating an opinion of the court that will be necessary or as to what the facts are. If an instruction applies only to a state of facts which you find does not exist, you will disregard the instruction. Okay, I have an article here. This is called Woman Believed Dead Stirs in Time to Stop Autopsy. All right, this is from the Register paper. Here we go. Ready? This is in Champaign, Illinois. A young woman who was believed to have died from a drug overdose stirred as a pathologist was about to perform an autopsy on her, authorities said. The detective who found her called it a miracle. The pathologist termed it a fluke. The woman, brought Thursday to the Burnham City Hospital morgue by police as an apparent drug overdose victim, was reported in satisfactory condition Saturday, a spokeswoman said. I'm telling you, I've seen dead people 100 times in my life, and she was dead. Champaign Police Detective Gary Wright said, I saw a resurrection. I'm going to my grave believing she had a second chance, and this is a miracle. Stanley Bobowski, the hospital pathologist who believed the woman to be dead, said it was a medical fluke. Police and hospital officials have withheld the identity of the woman, who was believed to be in her 20s. Police were called to the woman's apartment Thursday afternoon and found her lying on the floor after apparently taking alcohol and drugs, Wright said. Since investigators weren't sure what happened, they sealed off the apartment and did not send the woman to the morgue for 2 hours, Wright said. But when she was placed on the morgue table at the hospital, Wright said he noticed her swallowing and she was rushed to the emergency room. Pretty amazing. Okay, I have a narrative answer for you. I'm going to read this once at 180, and then I'll read it again at 200 and then at 225. Okay, here we go. Ready? I came down the hall to take a letter to the main office. I did note that the floor had been waxed because I did say to Mr. Mason that the floor looked very nice. He said that he wondered why they had waxed the floor on Tuesday. They usually did it over the weekend. As I turned the corner, my feet just went out from under me, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I knew right away that something was wrong with my arm. I must have fallen on it because it was twisted behind me. My elbow and shoulder hurt, and I had hot pains going all the way up. I just sat on the floor and did not do a thing. I felt shocked and hurt. Then Mr. Mason ran over and tried to help me get to my feet. It was hard to get up, and I felt weak all over. Okay, so I'll read this again at 200. Okay, here we go. I came down the hall to take a letter to the main office. I did note that the floor had been waxed because I did say to Mr. Mason that the floor looked very nice. He said that he wondered why they had waxed the floor on Tuesday. They usually did it over the weekend. As I turned the corner, my feet just went out from under me, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I knew right away that something was wrong with my arm. I must have fallen on it because it was twisted behind me. My elbow and shoulder hurt, and I had hot pains going all the way up. I sat on the floor and did not do a thing. I felt shocked and hurt. Then Mr. Mason ran over and tried to help me get to my feet. It was hard to get up, and I felt weak all over. Okay, so this last time we'll go at 2:20. I will read this at 2:25. Okay, here we go. Ready? I came down the hall to take a letter to the main office. I did note that the floor had been waxed because I did say to Mr. Mason that the floor looked very nice. He said that he wondered why they had waxed the floor on Tuesday. They usually did it over the weekend. As I turned the corner, my feet just went out from under me, and the next thing I knew, I was on the floor. I knew right away that something was wrong with my arm. I must have fallen on it because it was twisted behind me. My elbow and shoulder hurt, and I had hot pains going all the way up. I just sat on the floor and did not do a thing. I felt shocked and hurt. Then Mr. Mason ran over and tried to help me get to my feet. It was hard to get up, and I felt weak all over. Okay, hopefully that got easier, even though we did go all the way up to 225. Okay, so here's some criminal jury charge. Okay. Ready? Insanity, as the expression is used in these instructions, means such a diseased and deranged condition of the mental faculties as to render the person incapable of distinguishing between right and wrong, and in relation to the act with which he is charged, an irresistible impulse to commit an act which a party knows to be wrong and unlawful does not constitute the insanity which is a legal defense. The standard of accountability is this: had the party sufficient mental capacity to appreciate the character and quality of the act? Did he know and understand that it was a violation of the rights of another and in itself wrong? Did he know that it was prohibited by the law and of the land, and that its commission would entail punishment and penalties upon him? If he had the capacity thus to appreciate the character and comprehend the possible or probable consequences of his acts, he is responsible to the law for the act thus committed and is to be judged accordingly. Although it is true, as you have been instructed, that generally the burden of proof is upon the prosecution, there is this exception where insanity is relied upon as a defense. The burden of proving the existence of such insanity is on the defendant, and it is incumbent upon him to establish by a preponderance of the evidence that he was insane at the time of committing the act that is charged. And the evidence of mental derangement must be such an amount that if the single issue of sanity or insanity of the defendant should be submitted to the jury in a civil case, they must find that he is insane. Insanity must be established by a greater weight of the evidence. This is what we refer to as the preponderance of the evidence. Okay. I have an article here. This is called Life's a Beach and More in Carpinteria. So this is a beach around the central coast of California, if you're not from around here. Here we go. Okay, ready? To modern-day travelers, Carpinteria might seem like the last of the classic Southern California beach towns, but to the Spanish trailblazers, Traveling up the coast on a land expedition more than 200 years ago, it was a great place to set up camp. These days, campers of a different sort flock through downtown to Carpinteria's beach, their motorhomes and tents just steps from the sites of Carpinteria, where when Portola passed through, Indians from the nearby village were shaping their channel-going canoes. The sturdy wooden hulls were caulked with the asphalt that seeped from the banks along the shore, similar to the substance locals and visitors now clean from their bare feet on the same beach. Carp, as locals call it, is perched on a unique, it faces south instead of west, sliver of California coast, snuggled between the sea and the abruptly rising Santa Ynez Mountains, 85 miles northwest of Los Angeles. The Channel Islands offshore shelter its beaches, breaking the largest of the Pacific swells. Carp retains the vestiges of an earlier rural California tranquility, partly because of what it doesn't have: parking meters, even sidewalks and curbs in some of the older downtown neighborhoods. Its tallest structures rarely exceed 2 stories, and its citizens still fight vigorously against what some see as the encroaching sophistication of nearby Santa Barbara. What the 14,700 citizen town does have is a pedestrian-friendly main street, Linden Avenue, running down to the sea. 1 block southeast of Linden and Carpinteria Avenues, nestled among small wood frame cottages, is a nice place to start your visit. The Carpinteria Valley Museum of History offers a peek into the area's past with displays of memorabilia and artifacts from the American pioneer and Indian periods. On Linden, a walk along the main drag, past thrift stores and antiques and garden shops, might also mean a stop at the local bakery for the best handmade tamales on the coast, or a meal at the old cafe where lunch can be a grilled mushroom and vegetable sandwich, and dinner a thick grilled pork chop with peach chutney. Across the street is a fine candy shop where the colored mints beckon, as they were the official mint of Ronald Reagan's second inauguration. Farther down Linden, you will pass the plant and flower extravaganza, that is the Hollyhock Gardens, and then the faded green boards of the 100-year-old Toby House, which is now the home of Heart's Delight, an antique and collectibles store. Just before reaching the sand, turn right on Sandy Land Road and walk 3 blocks to one of California's remaining seaside small towns, fronted on one side by some of California's choicest beachfront real estate. The Carpinteria Salt Marsh Reserve and its 230 acres of wildlife are actually growing instead of shrinking because of several environmental groups' efforts. The city is completing a section of nature trails and interpretive signs. If you'd turn left instead of right when Linden Avenue hit the beach, you'd have found yourself at Carpinteria State Beach, a half-mile from the new Carpinteria Seal Sanctuary, which you can reach by going through the park and following the dirt pedestrian trail east. The rocks there might be covered with pupping harbor seals. The animals seem to thrive there alongside the heavy workboats that dock at the shore, or at the short wooden chevron pier. But Carpinteria isn't just a beach town. Take Casitas Pass Road just south of the town off of the 101 to Highway 192 and turn right, and you'll be passing through a seemingly earlier, truly more rural Southern California with avocado groves interspersed with lemon orchards, flower fields, and greenhouses. Keep your eyes open for roadside produce stands. Growers sell avocados and citrus fruits in season. To end your day on a high note, head east on the 192 for a couple of miles and then swing left on Shepherd Mesa. Circling the top of the mesa, you will see, stretching below you, Carpinteria, Santa Barbara, the mountains, and the offshore islands. This view of both ocean and mountain back country is perhaps the finest of any along the Santa Barbara Channel. Beautiful place. If you haven't been there, I encourage you to go. All right. Got some civil jury charge. Here we go. Ready? The defendants have the burden of establishing by a preponderance of the evidence all of the facts necessary to prove the following issues. The defendants assert that the plaintiff's claims are barred by waiver and ratification and by failure to mitigate damages. And you will hear something further from the court with respect to each of those. At the moment, the court is instructing you on where the burden of proof lies, having told you that it is the burden to establish the claims by a preponderance of the evidence. We have indicated to you that there is a burden on the plaintiffs with respect to what was said. Now, the plaintiffs, in order to recover under the relevant sections, must show by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendants acted knowingly, that is, with a mental state embracing intent to deceive, manipulate, or defraud. In order to establish this element, the plaintiffs must prove by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendants either stated material facts which they knew to be false, or knew of the existence of material facts which were not disclosed and should not have realized their significance in the making of an investment decision. Now, I have defined knowingly previously for you, but it is used in this instruction, and once I tell you once more that an act is done knowingly if it is done voluntarily and intentionally, and not because of mistake or accident or other innocent reason. Now, when I say, as I have to you in these instructions, that party has the burden of proof of any proposition, I mean you must been persuaded, considering all the evidence in the case, that the proposition is more probably true than not true. Okay. An article here. This is called Mama's Boy. NBA star Kevin Durant owes his career to his greatest coach. Guess who? Here we go. And if we don't finish this, I'll finish it in the next class. You wouldn't know it to look at me. I tower over most people at 6'9", a lean and mean 240 pounds. The size comes in handy in my line of work. I play forward for the NBA's Oklahoma City Thunder. On the court, I've got my game face on. I'm focused on doing whatever it takes for our team to win, shooting a jumper, slashing to the basket, mixing it up with other big men. But I don't get too loud or emotional, not even when I take charge of a game. Off the court, though, it's a different story. I'm still not loud, but I don't mind letting my feelings show, especially my feelings about my greatest coach and biggest inspiration, my mother, Wanda Pratt. No matter how far my career takes me from our hometown, Seat Pleasant, Maryland, I'll always be my mama's boy. I told you, you wouldn't guess it looking at me, but it is true. Mom has been there for me from day one when I first picked up a basketball and fell in love with the game. And she's still there cheering for me from her seat. That's if she stays in it. Across from the Thunder bench, the lessons she taught me have made me a better player and, more important, a better person. You get what you give. Mom put my older brother Tony and me in sports early to keep us off the streets. We pretty much lived at the rec center. I loved basketball, and when I was all of 11 years old, I told my mom I wanted to play in the NBA. She could have laughed. After all, there are fewer NBA players than there are Fortune 500 CEOs. But she didn't. She wanted Tony and me to know it was worth following our dreams. She also wanted us to understand that it takes hard work and sacrifice to achieve them. She showed us that each day. Her dream was to give us every chance to succeed in life. For a single mom, that was tough. She needed a good, steady job to support us, but she wanted to be home when we got back from school. So she worked the overnight shift at the post office, loading 70-pound mail bags onto trucks. She'd leave for work while Tony and I were getting ready for bed. Sometimes I'd see exhaustion in her eyes when she kissed me goodnight. Not that she ever complained. The biggest thing Mom gave up for us was her time. She didn't have a social life like other women in their 20s and 30s. She was working when her friends went out. The rest of her time she spent with us at home, at church, at our practices and games. Once I asked my mom why she didn't date or at least go out with her girlfriends. She loved to dance. She'd put on music at home and show off her moves. God gave me you and your brother, my mom said. You guys are my life. That made me think, if my mom was giving up everything for us, then I'd better work as hard as I could to make her sacrifice worth it. From then on, I practiced as much as I could. Long after my teammates left the rec center, I stayed and did drills until my muscles ached. Then it was home for dinner and homework. On weekends, my mom would get me out of bed late at night. Time for sit-ups and push-ups, she'd say. I'd whine. Mom, I did my workout already. I know, she said, but to get where you want to go, you've got to do extra. My mom could have been getting some rest herself instead of pushing her boys to be better. Thank the good Lord she kept at it, even when I resisted. Okay, so there's more to this article, but we'll finish it in our next class. Okay, so that concludes the 225 literary and jury charge. Have a great day.